This is Caps PA announcer Wes Johnson, and you're listening to Board the Pod.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new edition of What the Puck. It is a Washington Capitals podcast, which means it's a podcast about your 2018 Stanley Cup champions. Thank you all for listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Player.fm, Overcast, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, and YouTube. We are back again. Unfortunately, we missed last week. Sorry, everybody. Our schedules just would not allow us to record a What the Puck episode last week. I was busy working the inauguration of Wes Moore. He's the new governor here in Maryland. Coach Dan, he's got kids, so there's no free time there whatsoever.
A sick kid and work.
Yeah, there you go. So it's just craziness all around. This is what it's like. But hey, here we are. We're back. The Capitals are also back at sucking. They have done just terrible the last week and a half, which is weird because Nick Backstrom and Tom Wilson finally back in the lineup, and then they start to go on a little slide. So joining me as always to talk all about it, Coach Dan. What's going on, man? Do you think because we missed last week, that's where the poor play came from?
I'd like to. No, I would say I'd like to take credit for it, but I definitely don't want to take credit for it. But I think part of the issue is, to be fair, it started before we missed the show last.
That's true.
Week. Oh wait, no, did it? Yeah, because they lost to the Flyers. That first loss to the Flyers. Anyways, I mean they went what? They went 2-5 since we last talked. Not great, buddy.
Yeah, the Caps have not had a great January. Awesome December. Really great way to end the year. Great 2022 ending, but terrible way to start the year. 2023 has not been kind to the team. Really sloppy. That game in Vegas, even TJ Oshie came out and said, we're not good enough to have a game like this. It was an off night. They definitely had an off night. They admit it was an off night, but if these guys want to make the playoffs, they are running out of time. We have already hit, 50 games this year? There's not that many left. You've done the majority of the games already. It is go big or go home pretty soon here. And, I mean, we've got a big break coming up in a couple days, in about a week. But this is it. You know, the Caps, they need to get it together. They need to figure out their issues and fix them fast because the end of the season is approaching quickly. And if they're not careful, they're not going to be in the postseason.
I mean, right now they are sitting 5th in the Metro. They're tied with the Pens, but the Penguins have played 3 less games. So this game coming up on Thursday, I'd say, it's pretty important. And they're the 8th seed right now, as we saw went so well last year. So, yeah, I mean, they have just as good a chance of making the playoffs as they do not making the playoffs right now. This team is so Jekyll and Hyde. They're up and down all the time. And December may be the reason that they have an opportunity to make the playoffs. But there's just as good an opportunity to miss out if they're just going to make the assumption that everyone else is going to struggle. I mean, there was a talk about how they just have to do well enough in while they're waiting for Backstrom and Wilson, who's now out again after blocking a shot. He didn't return in the game against Vegas. I'm sorry, not Vegas, Colorado. And they're like, well, if we just play good enough to hang around, like that's not good enough because that makes the assumption that other teams are going to suck. And that's just not the case. I mean, Boston's like running away with the league right now. I don't know. They've lost 5 games. And if you include overtime losses, they've lost 9 games out of 47 games. That's insane.
Of the year? They've lost 9 games this year?
They are 38, 5, and 4. Hang on. Let's do this. Let's do a fun thing in terms of how good Boston is right now. They have more wins than no. I don't know if I'm going to get this right. Let me see. They have more wins than I don't know where else I'm going. Like someone else's games played. I don't know where I'm going with that. They're very good. They have more wins than Anaheim, Columbus, and Chicago have points.
Jeez.
Like that's insane. They're tied with San Jose in terms of they've won 38 games and San Jose has 38 points. So that's just insane. How good Boston's just like, bye everybody. They have 80 points. The next best team, Winnipeg, has 63. No, wait, that's not right. Sorry, Carolina has 66, as well as New Jersey. I mean, you can't in Toronto. You can't just like assume you're going. So going back to the Caps, you can't assume that you're going to have the opportunity to make the playoffs just because you had a good month of December, or just because you've been a good team for a long time now. Like you have to keep playing well, and this is a team that is not playing up to its potential and what they have on paper, and that's a problem. And I think they need to make some changes. And I don't think that's gonna be. I think, barring bringing back Barry Trotz, and that doesn't mean that it's like a foolproof plan. He's the only guy I can think of off the top of my head. But like, I don't feel like firing the coaching staff right now is going to make a big enough difference. I could be wrong. It's still late January. There's still plenty of hockey left to play. They still got 30 something games left, 32 games left, and
32,
so
yeah.
There's definitely opportunities to turn this thing around. But who's the coach out there that's gonna be able to do it that quickly? I think part of it is the roster. You have guys that aren't producing. I mean, I'm looking at the stats, I should say, right now, and Mantha, yeah, he's high up on there. He's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's 7th on the team in points, but he's got 24 points in 46 games. Milano has got 3 less points than him, but he's played 9 less games. Like, that's a problem. Why is that the case? Why is he getting a sweater fairly often? Why is he still on the roster? And when you're a guy that's making a significant amount of money, when you have a cap hit of 5.7, you have higher expectations. And while his cap hit is not necessarily his problem, his contract is not his problem, it's a reality of sports. And it's a reality of a sport that requires you to fit within a certain amount of money that you're allowed to spend on your team every year. And that's the reality of the NHL. And so if you aren't living up to the potential of what your contract is, then you got to go. Like, you're not helping. You're handicapping this team right now. The other aspect is that their defense is struggling a little bit because they're missing John Carlson. And, some other guys are going to step up. But right now, they had a good game. Even though they lost, they played really well against Colorado. They really were in that game. A couple bounces go their way that, maybe didn't. And we could be talking a little differently here, but they didn't win that game. And I do think this roster needs a little bit of a shakeup. And when's the trade deadline? I always forget that number. When is the trade deadline?
I don't know.
March 3rd is the trade deadline at 3 p.m. So they've got, just over a month to turn this around, in terms of if they want to make roster changes, big roster changes, I should say. We've seen some rumors that the Caps are entertaining offers for Lars Eller, but they want a defenseman in return, knowing that Carlson's likely out for the season, if not, assuming they make the playoffs, out for the playoffs as well. So as much as that would hurt, considering that Eller scored, the greatest goal or most important goal in Caps franchise history, he's scheduled to be an unrestricted free agent. And if you're not going to bring him back, let's get something for him. I'd love to get the kid from Arizona. Obviously, it's not going to be just a 1-for-1 kind of trade. You're going to have to add some other things to it. But that guy, he's a young guy. He's got, top pairing talent. He's going to be expensive, but you're going to have a truckload of cap space pretty soon because everyone on your defense right now is scheduled to need a new contract. And you got a couple of guys. If you move out Eller, if you move out Mantha, if you don't re-sign Dmitry Orlov, now you're freeing up some cap space. Does he take the spot that Orlov has in terms of sort of, I think he's only 24 or 25, but he's been in the league long enough now that he could be considered a veteran. Clearly they're looking for defensive help with Carlson's injury. Are they looking for forward help? I don't know. We haven't seen anything about that, but I wouldn't be surprised necessarily.
I think right now we have a plethora of forwards that we keep sitting. We keep sitting guys out that are actually doing really well for the team.
We have a plethora of bodies, but do we have a plethora of? So, let's say Eller's not on the team, right? Being he's up the press box, traded, whatever. What's your top 6? I want to see how close it is to mine. Or do you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay, so I'm going, assuming he would like to play well. I'm going, and this is not the first person. And let's say everybody's healthy. I'm probably going Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, Wilson. This is, again, healthy and up to speed in terms of, NHL level. And then second line, I'm probably going, I'm thinking about this, is it, who's on the left? Some combination of, Milano, Strome, and who would be on the right or the left side? Why am I blanking? I mean, it could be Oshie, but I kind of like the idea of like maybe like a Marcus Johansson, Backstrom, Oshie third line, or Sherry. You could put Sherry with Milano and Strome, or have Milano, Strome, Wilson, and have Sherry back on the top line if he can keep producing. And then you've got these opportunities, flexibility, and then your fourth line once he's back, you've got Dowd, Hathaway, and is it Aube Kubel, Protas? I feel like I'm forgetting someone right now. No, I got everybody in there. So there's opportunities for that there. Then your Protas, you're a little thinned out, but maybe you bring in a forward based off some of the trades you make at the deadline or beforehand. So this team has flexibility, but they got to get out. Well, they have a little bit of flexibility, not cap space, flexibility in terms of guys they can move around. But you got to get out from under that Mantha contract because he's not a free agent at the end of the season. He's still got another year on his deal. And are you moving out Lars Eller? And then there's concern of center depth. Dowd's out right now, so do they want to move Eller? You've got guys from the minors that you can call up that can play in the center spot. You've got Alexi Protas, who I know he's a winger, but I believe he started as a center or played as a center previously in his career. So there's flexibility there in terms of what they can do, but they need to move some guys out and, need to bring in some defensive help.
And Protas, he actually did center a line, I believe, last night in Colorado because Nick Backstrom was a last minute scratch. He did not get to he did not play.
I mean,
do we know what happened to Backstrom? Why he wasn't out there?
Oh, he was sick. Non-COVID illness and listed as day-to-day. So I mean that happens throughout the season where players get sick. We used to see pre-COVID, we used to see so-and-so was out with the quote-unquote flu all the time. So those things are going to happen. But, there's flexibility, there's opportunities for this team here. But what they have right now is not working. And I think that's part of the problem. And I think they're just sitting there with the assumption of, well, once we get Wilson and Backstrom back, like everything's going to be fine. And as we've seen, that's not necessarily the case because we can't just rely on those guys to turn up and just, not play really well. That sounds harsh. But we just expect them to turn up and turn everything around. That's a lot of pressure on their shoulders. Everyone else has to step up. And we've seen guys like Milano. We've seen guys like Strome that have. And then the other question is there no market for Mantha? Or other teams looking at it going, no, thank you. We're good. We're not taking, it's only one more year on his deal. So I think they could get someone. But the question is, what are you getting in return? And is what you're getting in return going to be valuable enough? Is it another guy who's not producing as well and has a high contract, doesn't really help you out? Is it for more years that person may have a contract for? So I have to imagine they're working the phones, but I don't know. I have questions. I have questions about this roster. I have questions about some of the things that the players have been saying in terms of they just didn't show up to play as well. And I'm I question that. I put that on not only the players because they're adults and they should, be energized to play every night, but then I also put that on the coaching staff in terms of how they're able to, get this team ready to go. If this season ends how it looks like it's going to end, I feel like there should be a bit of a shakeup this offseason, and that this Caps team, both coaching staff and players, might look pretty different next year.
Obviously, the big concern and everything is on Alexander Ovechkin. I think that, yes, they want to make the playoffs and go as far as they can, but the big thing right now is to get him up to that Gretzky goal count and to get him to be number one there. So I think the coaching staff and everything, that is what the focus is on. I don't know if that's exactly the right thing it should be focused on. I think it should be more of a team thing, but Ovechkin is the center of the team and he's only got so many years left. They really need to emphasize that he wants to get to that goal but also get another Stanley Cup. I don't know what these lines are going to look like because it looks like they're just due to injuries and babies being born and people being sick and more and more injuries.
Kids does Oshie need?
It's just
what, number 7?
These lines just go into a blender. It's like that Eve 6 song, It's like my heart in a blender. That's what happens. They're just going to put them all in a blender and see what comes out. So I like Ovechkin, Daniel Strome. I would think that Dylan Strome. That was wrong. So I think that those two together work really well. I think that's a smart move to have there. I'd like to see Tom Wilson be top line Tom again. I've been talking about it, though. I want to see Wilson and Mantha. I want to see them back together, see if that does affect Anthony Mantha's game in some way, unless you're reading the tea leaves and see that Mantha's not, long for this team, and they're like, let's not even waste our time trying to get these two guys working together again, because it's not going to happen for very long. So I don't know what the plan is here, but it sucks that we've been waiting for so long, months and months and months, of Tom Wilson, Nick Backstrom. Finally, they're back. And then Wilson gets hurt 8 games into his season, and Backstrom misses yet another game. And I think he had COVID last month, or an illness last month as well.
No, he was out for COVID at one point.
Yeah, before he was even back. So, like, drink your OJ, dude. Like, I don't know. Like,
I don't think orange juice helps you when it comes to COVID.
yeah, that's true. But, like, having those guys back, it takes time to get acclimated to playing in an NHL game again. Like, I get it, but we don't have time for these guys to get acclimated. You know, we've only got 32 games left. Like, you got to get out there, guys. You got to do your thing. You got to be the stars that we know you can be, because we need those W's right now.
I mean, they do. And the season's not getting any easier. It is in the immediate future in terms
it
of...
is
It is
rough coming up in February. Like, after the All-Star game and the bye week, it is rough for this team.
I mean, the question is, do you... And I don't know the rules regarding the bye week, but I imagine it's kind of like you're not allowed to have some practices certain days or something like that. But is that when you're looking to make some moves? No. I mean, if you've seen over the last maybe 4 or 5 years, teams make moves, big moves, usually, well ahead of the deadline. So you've got a better chance, I would imagine, that we see the bigger trades in February, obviously with the deadline being on March 3rd. I would say 13th to the 27th, 28th are when we're going to see some bigger trades go down. When you might see an Erik Karlsson or a Jacob Chukrin. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. And that is when I would think we might see some of those bigger trades go down. But as of now, if I'm the Caps, I want to get some of these big trades if I can. I want to get them earlier because I need to get these guys acclimated to the system and ready to go. And we need points now. So the longer you wait to do that, the later into the season, the new guy will take to get acclimated to the team, to the city, to new teammates, to the new system. And it just prevents you from being able to continue your progression. We know this team, at least at the beginning of the season, it's changed now. At the beginning of the season, was one of the oldest teams in the league. I think second oldest only to the Penguins. So that clearly is an issue. We know injuries are an issue, so we need reinforcements, which they've been okay with. But they need to start making some moves. And if I'm the GM of this team, I'm making them now. Because I want to give my guys as much time as possible. I want to give my coaching staff as much time as possible to get as many W's as we can get. I want to see what they can do, because if I go into this offseason with another first-round exit, or I don't even make the playoffs, I'm cleaning house. At least with the coaching staff. And that is like Brett Neely and Hart, the guys behind the scenes, like, not necessarily. But the guys on the bench, we need a new crew. It's not working. And it's somewhat, you can see, I got rid of the screen back here, but like I have Arsenal up here. I was watching, I know you're not a European football fan, but I was watching, so last season, the Amazon crew followed around Arsenal for the All or Nothing documentary that they do every year.
Okay.
And seeing a guy like Mikel Arteta, who's their manager, he's a younger guy. I think he's like my age. He's like 38 or something, maybe a little older than me. But he's a young guy. He's energetic. Arsenal have as of right now, they have the youngest team on average in the Premier League of the 20 teams, and they're on top of the league. They're the top team right now. And they have a lot of young guys, and they're energized, and they're motivated, and part of that is the coaching staff. And I know it's not a like-for-like between European football, soccer, and hockey. But these guys, if the problem is they come out and they're like, well, we just didn't have it tonight, or we weren't up to our normal game. Well, why is that the case? You know, in soccer, you only get one timeout. You only get one break between the first half and second half to talk to your players, to get them going again after the game has started. Hockey, not only do you have them on the bench where they're coming and going, but you get 2 intermissions to talk to them and hype them up. Why is this not happening? Or if it is happening, it's clearly not working. So something's wrong with this roster right now. And I think December, to an extent, was a smokescreen in terms of what this team really is. And what they are is average, or an above-average team. Standings don't lie. They show how many games you've won and how many games you've lost. And right now, they are an average team. In the entire NHL, they are 14th in terms of points. Tied for 13th with Pittsburgh. They're one up on Colorado, but they played 4 more games in Colorado, 3 more games at Pittsburgh. So to be fair, they're probably more 16th, 17th, right around that spot. Actually, have they played the most games right now? Yeah, them in Los Angeles and Florida. That's so weird. Whoever made these schedules is crazy. Anyways, they're an average team. Maybe not even above average. They're just average. Some nights they can play better than others, but they're an average team. Is this the team that we really the best team that we can put out there? They're not a rebuilding team. They're not a team of has-beens. They've got arguably the greatest goal scorer of all time. In the next few years, it might be not so arguably anymore. They've got Hall of Fame talent. They've got very good players. I don't even care about the All-Star argument because the All-Star games, it's kind of a joke in terms of who gets in. This team should be better than they are. And the fact that they're not, the fact that they're average, to me, again, going back, like when we talked with Dan Holme from the Locked On podcast, the Locked On Capitals, I still think Laviolette, this is not the right guy for this team. I want a guy that's got energy. I want a guy, you know what? I hate to say this because I don't like them, and I don't like him because I think he's nuts. But I want a guy that's going to get fired up on the bench. I want Rod Brind'Amour type. Someone who's going to get there. He's loud. He's aggressive. He defends his team. I don't want a guy that is he just seems very bland to me. And I don't feel like this team has really progressed at all under his leadership. And it's not he's a bad coach. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's the winningest or one of the winningest American-born coaches in NHL history. It just might be a bad fit. It's not a shot at him. It just is what it is. He just might be a bad fit for these players or for this organization for whatever reason. That's my take on it. I'm done ranting.
Well, everything you said is true. We do have Alex Ovechkin on this team. We do have some really great caliber Hall of Fame talent like TJ Oshie and Nick Backstrom and Tom Wilson and even Marcus Johansson to an extent. Like he's really coming to his own, coming back to the Capitals. But we also have some really good young talents. Sonny Milano, Alexia Protas, who I did not know was a giant. If you saw him in the intermission again with Smoking Al Koken, that
he's
dude is
not short.
Yeah.
Well, although I believe Al Koken, and I'm 5'8" on a good day, so I'm not saying I'm tall or anything, but like I think I'm taller than Al Koken, and I still would look like a tiny human next to. A lot of people would look like tiny humans next to Alexia Protas.
Yeah. But Albe Kubel, like he came in, picked him up on waivers. I don't know what he was expecting with his Capitals career here, but he's come in and
he gets suspended in like the first 5 games.
Yeah, but since then he's done his job. He's doing what he has to do. So he's getting the job done. So in all aspects, goaltending. I mean, the goaltending has been fantastic this season. Cannot complain about either guy, goalie 1 or goalie A or goalie B. Both of them know their job. They're doing it well, and everybody's happy with that duo we have there. So should they be winning more? Absolutely, they should. Is there an issue here? I don't know. I don't know what the issue is, but I don't have confidence in this team. In years past, I would tune in to every game and go, yeah, this team's going to win this one tonight, or this is going to happen, that's going to happen. This team, you tune in and you're like, you hold your breath because you don't know what's going to happen. It could go either way. Like that's kind of the way I describe it every game. Well, they're down 3 points, but they could come back. They might not. They could. I don't know. So it really is just trying to figure out what they're going to do and what's going to motivate them and what I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
I don't think you can go bold with any moves right now. Right? Like I think in the offseason, and what I mean by bold is you trade a big name guy. And I don't count Anthony Mantha in that because he's not a top 6 player on this team right now. But if it doesn't work out, I think they need to shake things up pretty good. And that might mean moving out someone to bring in someone new that can play on the top 6. Like, do you move out Yevgeny Kuznetsov? Do you move out? Do you make a move to bring someone in the top 6 that can really produce? Do you go back and make that Troy Brouwer for TJ Oshie type trade? And that was what? That was a midseason trade, right? The Oshie for Brouwer one, I believe, was a midseason trade. So like,
no, it wasn't.
It wasn't?
No, because he was at rookie camp signing autographs. And they didn't have a picture for him in a Caps jersey yet.
Oh, it was at the 2016 NHL entry draft is when they made that trade.
Yep.
I could have sworn that was during the season. Anyways, do you make that type of trade? Because the concern about making a big trade now is it potentially harms you, right? Because the new guy takes time to acclimate, but you've lost a big name player. But if you move out a guy that's not producing or not doing as well, or is further down your depth chart, then it doesn't hurt you in the same way. But what they have right now is not good enough for a team that wants to make a deep run in the playoffs. If they legitimately can sit there in their, if you're the front office staff, if you can sit at your desk in your office and say, yeah, we want to make a deep run, then this team is clearly, there's nothing that has shown you, even during December, there's nothing that has shown you that they can go out and compete with the top teams. I mean, given the way Boston's going, I think nobody can compete with them right now. But there's nothing that shows you that this is a team that's going to make it out of the first round or even make it to the first round. They're an maybe above average team. And I get it, like, there's 32 teams and only one wins the cup every year. And, like, I get all of that. But give yourself an opportunity to do something. At least the year they won the cup, we saw signs of possibility. We're not seeing it this season. I don't know. Maybe other people are seeing something and I'm not, but I'm having a real hard time finding a reason to go, okay, I think they've got something here.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I did last year. If they do make it, it'll be an early exit. But they've got 32 games to right the ship, and that's what they got to do. And that's your timetable. You've got till April. It's end of January now. You've got till April to figure this all out. But before we get out of Caps world, I do want to ask you, what did you think of the Caps game in Arizona in that tiny rink? Watching it on TV, because I really enjoyed it. It felt like we were on top of the ice. I don't know. It felt more intimate, I guess.
It's cool. I mean, I think it's silly in the sense of, like, this is the top league in the world, and one of their teams is playing in a rink that is 5,000 people can fit in it. Like that's smaller than ECHL arenas. Some of them. Actually, I think all of them.
Yeah, this is very intriguing to me, and they brought this up on Caps this morning when that game was happening, that they have a student section for the university, but they also, every other ticket is like $260. So the people that are in there are rowdy college students who are just there to have a good time, and then people that really, really, really like their team and are willing to spend $500 for a pair of tickets. So you've either got like rabid Coyote fans, or you've got the visiting team that has their own cheering section. So they're saying, like, the crowd is becoming a real factor for these games played at the Mullet, because some people can't hear themselves because these are the fans that aren't there like on a business trip, or they're not there just to kind of hang out. They're there to see hockey, and they're vocal about it too. And a lot of the times you go to sporting events and there's club level and there's this and there's that, and there's people that aren't really there. They're there to get drunk, or they're there to impress a colleague or something like that. And you can notice that after intermission of certain periods at Capital One Arena, the first like 5-6 rows around the glass are empty and halfway through the period. But you don't get that for Arizona games. So I don't know. It was kind of fun. It was like people were there, literally were there to watch hockey, and they were enjoying themselves, and you could tell it came through on the broadcast.
I mean, it's definitely, like, I remember I've gone to a few games at the old Mellon Arena. I've friends that were Penguins fans, and so we go to Pittsburgh, and I think I saw them lose to the Flyers, and I forget what else. A game against Buffalo. I forget who won. Anyways, and so Mellon Arena was a bit of a dump, but because it felt very close, right? And I kind of feel like it's similar to very interestingly named Mullet Arena in Arizona, where it's just like everybody feels like they're right on top of each other. They're on top of the ice, so I imagine it's very loud. They got a bit of home ice advantage. Apparently, Arizona's done quite well at home, but pretty garbage on the road, and that's beneficial. And I feel like, well, Verizon Center, Capital One, they made a mistake in terms of how they designed it, because if anybody leans forward in any of the upper bowl seats, the people behind you can't see the ice, which is super annoying. given it's
I
been
actually
years
was
since
at
it's been
dinner in Ocean City around the holidays, and a guy came up to me because I was wearing my Carlson jersey and told me stories about he was one of the electricians that built the Capital One Arena.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he was telling me all kinds of stories, and that like the last beam that went up to the ceiling, everyone that worked on the construction site signed it, so their names are actually in the ceiling of the arena.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's very interesting. I just think it's a bit. It's so typical of the NHL that they didn't plan ahead in terms like yes, it's gonna work out, and then it sounds like everything's gonna go, and Arizona's gonna get their new rink in a couple of years, but it's so typical of the NHL that they're playing in a rink that is smaller than a number of ECHL teams, like the minor of the minor leagues.
yeah,
I don't know. It's ridiculous, in my opinion.
yeah. Well, anything else we should talk about here in Caps World?
I think. Well, the last little bit of news: Ovechkin. He's a bit upset with the team right now. I don't know if you saw this. He's pretty mad. They had their last game in the reverse retros, and he wants them back next year.
I agree with him.
We'll see what we'll see what happens in that big situation that they got going down with the team right now. Last year's the last season Adidas and NHL are partnering. Do you think they're going to do one more time? Have the reverse retros?
I mean, these things are selling like hotcakes. Why wouldn't you?
I don't know. I mean, I think it would be cool. I want to see, because how would they do it now, right? Like they kind of did. There was reverse retro. Was it really a reverse retro? Because they didn't reverse anything. They just like mix it up a little bit. Like, what would they do? I want to see the black, blue, and the bronze with the old script logo. I don't know if it would look good, but I think it'd be interesting. Right?
Yeah,
So that would be reverse retro. You take the sort of the older colors with the vintage logo, and see how that looks. And maybe they design it and they're like, never mind, let's not do that.
Yeah, I figured they would do the dome logo in red, white, and blue.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah.
That I might have to buy. That would be pretty awesome. So
See, I got a reverse retro for Christmas, and now that they're already done with them, like I didn't even get to wear one to a game. Like I'm bummed it's already over.
You can always wear one to a game.
I know, but like I like to match the team.
It's like a guy with the. It's like, do you plan what you're going to wear to the game based on what they're wearing?
Yes, you don't do that?
No, I just pick whatever jersey I want to wear that night.
Come on.
I mean, I wear a Caps jersey. I mean, I have a bunch of, like, currently, as you can see, I'm wearing a Quebec Nordiques jersey. But I sometimes I'll wear red, sometimes I'll wear white. This is back when I used to be able to go to games. I gotta go to one soon, although they're so expensive. Sometimes I'd wear the old black jersey. I remember one time I was wearing a, I think I told you, sorry, I had the Calle Johansson one, and someone was like, "Hey, he's the wrong number of Marcus Johansson on his back," and I'm like, "Oh my god, you're clearly a newer fan." I have sort of the vintage white I can rock from time to time. So I switch it up in terms of what I feel like wearing that night. I have the old Bondra. I have since retired wearing that one. Didn't have the greatest of luck in that jersey. Maybe I'll bring it back. I also am always worried I'm going to spill something on that one. So
Yeah.
I tend to not wear that to games.
I mean, of course, I like wearing the blue. That's my favorite one. The W blue one. That's the best. But now that I have the reverse retro, that's in there too. But I've got the red, the Stanley Cup champion patch one. So those are the ones I do. Those are the ones I wear. And usually, if depending on what the team was wearing, that's the jersey I would wear. But I don't know. Now you're making me feel weird that I do that.
Well, I mean, you're more than welcome to. I just didn't know that. It also kind of limits you in terms of what you can wear to a game, because like unless you're going to go to a game at an away rink, you're never going to be able to wear like.
Yeah, I don't think I have the Winter Classic, the first Winter Classic that became our third jerseys, the white ones. I have that as a white jersey, but I don't have an away jersey.
I have one or two of the away jersey whites. I don't even like the away whites that much.
Yeah,
but they're okay.
Well, is that it for what's going on in Caps World?
Yeah, man. I think so.
All right.
That's
so
all I got.
That's all you got?
That's all I got.
That's all I got. All right. Well, if that's it for what's going on in Caps World, now let's go down on the farm. All right, everybody, here we go. We're going down on the farm. We are talking Hershey Bears and South Carolina Stingrays. Coach Dan, what's going on down on the farm?
Let's start in Hershey, as we always do, where the Bears went 3-1 with 2 wins over Springfield and 1 over Belleville. They're currently first in the Atlantic Division with 57 points, 3 up on second place Providence. Now they're back at it tonight, that being Wednesday in Lehigh Valley. They then play the Baby Flyers away again on Saturday before hosting Bridgeport on Sunday at the Giant Center. Going down to South Carolina, where the Stingrays went 3-3 with wins over Savannah, Jacksonville, and Atlanta. They're currently second in the South Division with 50 points, 1 back of first place Florida, though Florida has played 2 more games than the Stingrays. Now they're back at it tonight as well in Florida, where they will hang out and play the Everblades again on Friday and Saturday. Nice little extended trip to, where do they play? Jacksonville, maybe? No, they play, where do they play? Where do the Florida Everblades play?
Fort Myers.
That's what's going on down on the farm. Now, Brandon, let's go around the NHL and beyond.
All right, everybody, here we go. We're going around the NHL and beyond. Lots of stuff going on. Coach Dan, catch us all up. What's going on around the NHL and beyond?
Let's start in Vancouver, where the Canucks embarrassed not only themselves, but the NHL and how they treated now former head coach Bruce Boudreau, who they fired this past Sunday after talking about looking for a new head coach for months. That was a horrible way to treat a head coach, but a lot of credit to him. He was as you would expect from Boudreau, stand-up guy about the whole thing. He knew what was going on and kept going to work every day. Players had his back, and kudos to the fans for celebrating him in what ended up being his last game as part of the organization. But the Canucks, shame on you for the way you treated him.
Yeah,
they ended up hiring Rick Tocchet, but it was an embarrassment.
Yeah, that was terrible, and the fans knew this was going to be Bruce's last game, so they did another chant of Bruce, there it is, but he hasn't been in Vancouver long, right? Has it been, was this a season and a half?
Year? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think he came in during the 2020 season or halfway through because he was working with the Caps pregame show for a while, and then he stopped doing that because he got the head coach job. So not a lot of time for this guy. He came in and was doing really good with Vancouver. They haven't had a great season, and they put all the blame on Bruce, but terrible way to take the guy out the way they did.
I mean, it was an embarrassment, and to be able to treat him like that was just ridiculous. It sounds like he's heading back to Hershey. I think he and his wife have their forever home there. I'd love for them to get him back on the Caps broadcast. He was brilliant at that.
He was.
Have him in there. It's going to be hard to get him to come down from Hershey all the time, but maybe not. Get him on Zoom or something.
Yeah.
Have him come in, set up some equipment in his basement or somewhere in his, I'm sure he's got a big enough house. He's probably got an office in there. Set him up in there and have him join the show that, post-game, pre-game shows that way. But, I mean, that's money right there. For me, I think that's a great plan.
Yeah.
But let's head over to the NHL's leading team in Boston, where the Bruins signed winger Pavel Zacha to don't know if I said that name right, 4-year, $19 million deal. Cap hit comes to $4.75 million. Minnesota signed Matt Boldy to a $49 million 7-year extension. It's a $7 million annual cap hit. I know it's been a while, but we have some fines to announce over this past week. I guess everybody decided to behave themselves until this past week or 2 weeks, as Tampa's Mikhail Sergachev was fined $5,000 for roughing Vancouver's Connor Garland. By the way, real quick, cutting off topic here, did you see that video of a news reporter trying to talk about the Canucks and how they the Canucks?
Yeah.
And I can't remember how they pronounced Boudreau's name, but I was like, oh, just try. At least you and I do a little bit of research when we remember in terms of how to pronounce cities and things ahead of time, or if we admit that we're not even close.
I was working at a local station here in Baltimore many years ago, and there was a guy auditioning, and they were having him go through the sports and everything, and he said Washington Capitals Mathieu Perrault, and I'm in the control room, and I'm like, his name is Perreault. That's not even how you say the guy's name. And I literally was shushed.
I mean, I don't even think that's how you would pronounce it if you were trying to do it phonetically.
Yeah.
There's a U in there. Getting back to it, Florida head coach Paul Maurice was fined $25,000 for making inappropriate comments against officials during a post-game press conference. And Montreal's Mike Matheson was fined $5,000 for interfering with Florida's Eric Staal. Now, speaking of people doing dumb things, did you see Bettman's comments about how no teams tank? I mean, I
did not see that.
So he came out and says teams don't tank. I think we just got evidence that he doesn't actually watch any games since ever. Like, yeah, some teams do kind of try and tank. They have a fire sale. They're trying to be bad because they need to rebuild. Otherwise, It's kind of a version of tanking, that you're trying to not be good because you want to have a better shot at that first pick or a high, a top pick. So yeah, Bettman, you're dumb. Moving on, Steven Stamkos became the 47th NHL player to score 500 goals after he scored back on January 19th. It was nice of Ovechkin. He was part of the video package congratulating him. Congratulations, Steven Stamkos. I still hate you because you play for Tampa.
True.
In international women's hockey news, what seems to be an annoying trend we got going on here as Team USA won the bronze medal in the IIHF U18 Women's World Championship, defeating Finland in a shutout 5-0. Canada got a shutout of their own, doubling up that score after they defeated Sweden 10-0 to win the gold. Final two games of the rivalry series between the USA and Canada's women's hockey teams have been announced. The final two games will take place, the first one being on February 20th in, I hope I'm doing this right, everybody, Trois-Rivières in Quebec, and February 22nd in Laval, also being in Quebec. You can watch both of those games on the NHL Network. Currently, the U.S. leads the series 3-2, but as we've seen, they will somehow end up getting a bronze, even though there's only two teams in this tournament. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to. And finally, the IIHF has announced the schedule for the Women's World Hockey Championship. The 31-game tournament begins on April 5th, with France facing Finland. The U.S. will face Japan, and host Canada will be up against Switzerland. The Czech Republic, Germany, Hungary, and Sweden will each begin their tournament play on the 6th of April. Quarterfinals will be on April 13th, with the semifinals set for the 15th. And then the tournament comes to a close on the 16th with the 5th place game, followed by the bronze, which the U.S. has already won, silver, and gold medal games. I'm going to keep going with that joke because it's funny to me. That's what's going on around the NHL and beyond.
All right, guys. Well, if you would like to continue the conversation with Coach Dan or I, you can. It's real easy. All you have to do is tweet to either one of us. You can tweet to me at Brando Cash. Coach Dan, where can people tweet to you at?
You can find me on Twitter at WTP Coach Dan, talking about all kinds of things related to the Washington Capitals, the Arsenal Football Club, brilliant win over the weekend, 90th minute goal from Eddie Nketiah. What a play by Zinchenko. Over to Odegaard. Nketiah, goal, brilliant. You can also find me on there talking about the Bills and how disappointing an end to their season came. It's one thing to lose. It's another to lose looking so badly. And that they just could not, nothing could click in that game. It was ridiculous. Props to the Bengals for playing a good game. Although Eli Apple, that guy's I don't like him. Not because he's a good player, because I don't like the things he was tweeting out afterwards. Kind of potentially bringing in a guy who had essentially a heart attack on the field. Like, that's not okay. I'm also on there occasionally talking about the Commanders and how Dan Snyder doesn't want to sell his team to Jeff Bezos, who would instantly become the richest man, owner, I should say, in the National Football League. The only good thing about Bezos is that he might actually pay for a new stadium himself, as opposed to having it go through taxpayer dollars. But another, not conspiracy, but one thing they've been talking about in regards to the Commanders is that they would sell the facility, their practice facility in Virginia, because that would make them bank. They would turn FedEx Field, and obviously they have to do something to the stadium, into their practice facility, and then they would build a new stadium on the RFK site. So something I read, this was years ago, I read that when FedEx Field was designed, it was designed to be able to be taken down and turned into, like, I don't know if it was like housing or like an entertainment complex. The Prince George's like athletic center, performance center is like right next door as well. So as part of the plan was that eventually you'd be able to turn back over to the county. That would be cool with me, having the practice facility in Landover and then the stadium back at the RFK site. I know the people who live around RFK won't be thrilled, but having the team back in the city limits, I think, would be great. But that's somehow finding me on Twitter at WTP Coach Dan. But hey, if you've enjoyed the show, go ahead and check us out on Facebook. Facebook.com/WhatThePuckPod is where we post when new shows are coming out, as well as all sorts of other things related to the Washington Capitals, Hershey Bears, South Carolina Stingrays, the Hershey Cubs, who I guess they're getting they're one of their owners back in Bruce Boudreau. It's Facebook.com/WhatThePuckPod. But Brandon, I was talking about football a few moments ago. The Bills weren't the only team, apologize for this, getting knocked out of the playoffs recently. But if someone happens to be a fan of a purple-clad team based out of Baltimore, is there a certain podcast they should check out?
That's right. If you want to listen to a podcast about a team that actually put up a fight against the Bengals, you can listen.
Hey!
You can listen to my Baltimore Ravens podcast called The Call. Me and my buddy Josh literally just recorded an episode right before I got on here to talk to Dan. So we have a new show coming out pretty soon to discuss the end of the Baltimore Ravens season and what to do about Lamar's contract. Now, this show we do for free, and you listen, stream, and download for free on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Player.fm, Overcast, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, and YouTube. All we ask in return is for you to please spread the word about the show. Write us an Apple Podcast review, rate us over on Spotify, and then let people know on Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and Pinterest and Instagram and Reddit and Snapchat and Twitch and TikTok and Hive and Discord, everywhere else you're social on the web or with your phone. Say, I'm a Washington Capitals fan. I listen to What the Puck, and you should too. So that is it until we talk again. Let's go over the shows until we talk again. On Thursday, January 26th, those pesky Penguins come to town. They will be in D.C. That game's at 7 o'clock. You can watch that one locally on NBC Sports Washington. Then on Sunday, January 29th, the Capitals are in Toronto up against the Maple Leafs. That game's at 5 o'clock. You can watch that one on the NHL Network or on NBC Sports Washington locally. And then on Tuesday, January 31st, January comes to a close in Columbus against the Blue Jackets. That game's at 7 o'clock, and you can watch that one on NBC Sports Washington. All right, Coach, big games coming up. We got 2 in the division. Until we talk again, these games become more and more important as we get closer and closer to the end of the season. Hopefully the Caps can come away with a couple wins here, and hopefully, as we've said in the past, it is a 4-point game against Pittsburgh. And when we say 4-point game, we mean 2 points for us, none for them, so it keeps them even farther away from the Capitals. So that's why this game is so important. They are right on the heels of the Caps, and there's always a good rivalry game there. Pens versus Caps. That is it for the show this week, everybody. Say it loud, say it proud. Let's go, Caps.
This has been a production of Brando Cash Entertainment. Music by DJ Wolfman, voiceover by Sarah Jacks. For more information, go to brandocash.com.